You're just putting your best effort out there each and every day, but it may not always result the way that you want it to. You may not make that shot, right? You may not get that big play that you've trained all week to try to make happen. And so being able to reset yourself is one thing, but as a leader, being able to encourage your team and coach your team up through those moments, I think is equally important.
And Lauren, again, like Kendall and like AJ, you are able to, using your self-awareness, using your ability to see feedback differently and more objective and at face value, you were able to take all that success from high school and now reestablish that at the next level in Division One. Hey, I'm Chris Steer, and you're listening to the Art and Science of Leadership podcast. So welcome, the show where we break down what it really takes to lead with care, clarity, and connection. This podcast is built around what we can learn from neuroscience, organizational data, lived experience, and timeless wisdom when it comes to the art and science of leadership, so that you can not only grow and learn, but also bring your teams and your organizations to a higher level. We're all about permanent beta, always learning and never done growing. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Art and Science of Leadership podcast. For maybe the 8th time in a row, we have my partner in crime in leadership, AJ Larkin, joining us tonight. And we have a very special session tonight because we have 3 Division I athletes on our podcast, and they all happen to be Steers and Larkins. So we've got AJ Larkin from University of Maryland, Kendall and Lauren Steer from Georgetown, 3 Division I athletes in playing lacrosse. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're very excited about this because back in the summer, Amy really wanted us to dial in on coachability and feedback and continuous learning in the professional context and connecting it to the athletic mindset and the athletic context. And so that's exactly what we're doing tonight. And so thank you all. We're fired up to be here. Amy, how about this, right? We got the gang together.
I'm so just excited. I don't think I've been this excited for a podcast in a long time because I think it really closes our loop, Chris, on everything that we've been talking about all year, right? And at the root of all of it, it's about learning and growth, right? Permanent beta. And that directly correlates and, speaks miles and miles to how important feedback and coachability is. And so what better guests to have than those that are on the field day in and day out, working hard, who have experienced different levels of coaching throughout their entire lives so far. And we thought it'd be really fun to be able to show the direct connection between what athletes experience and how that can correlate into business. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, perfectly said. Perfectly said. No, by the way, permanent beta over my right shoulder, always learning, never done growing. Be a learner, not a knower. And we have 3 accomplished student athletes and student leaders, I should add, on our podcast tonight. And a quick shout out to Ava Larkin and Michael Steer, the other 2 Steer and Larkin crew that are also on their way to Division I athletics. So I want to make sure that we include them in this this fun moment for us all together. But let me start with AJ. And AJ, let's take it back to the early years, buddy, like earlier years. When did it really land with you that coachability and the honest feedback was something that really shaped who you became as an athlete?
Yeah, well, first off, before we get started, Mr. Steer and obviously Mom, thank you for having us on. I know I can speak for all of us. It's truly an honor. I know Mom's been talking about this for a while, so I definitely know how excited she is. But definitely taking a time machine back, for sure. Feedback was pretty crucial, and it is crucial, I think, not only in the college level, but I think at all levels of play. And one memory that really sticks out to me was I was in 7th grade, I believe. I was playing basketball. Definitely don't play basketball now. Not that good. But I really thought I was like the next coming of Steph Curry. I thought I was so good. And I was playing for Carroll Manor Rec Council. And we played in a tournament. I didn't play the whole time. And I was so upset, like so brutally upset. And I was like whining to mom and dad the whole time. And I was whining to them on the car ride home. And we get home and I'm whining to them some more. And they sat me down and they looked at me and they said, AJ, you just suck at basketball. Like, you just are terrible. And I chuckled at them and I was like, haha, like funny joke. And they were just like, no, we're dead serious. Like, you're awful. You're terrible. And I was like, oh, I didn't really realize that you thought that. And they were just like, you don't really dedicate any time towards it. You're a know-it-all. You're a little selfish on the court, like all this stuff. And it kind of made me really step back and think, okay, wow, like I never really thought about it like that. And more so not only in basketball, but I think in other sports as well. Obviously now playing lacrosse, but it made me think like kind of the same thing. Like at that time, I wasn't on a really good club team. My dad was my coach, and it was kind of the same thing. Like I kind of thought I was a lot better than I was, but that was kind of a level set for me to be able to take that feedback, hopefully try to be as coachable as I could at that age, and just use it as kind of fuel. So.
Thank you for that, buddy. Amy, do you remember that story?
Oh, yes. It is spoken of quite often in the house. It is a core memory, I think, for all of us. And as parents, we really try to guide our kids to, be confident in themselves. And so we knew that we had a little bit of a lack of self-awareness issue going on after that tournament. He was devastated and really truly was not understanding why he didn't get a minute of playing time. And he was fired up. He was angry, every emotion you can imagine. And, we went with the cardinal rule of, no conversation, no harsh criticism or feedback on the car ride home. And, he continued to just get more and more emotional and fired up about it. And my husband and I had a long talk and we said, we have to be the ones to really make sure he understands and coach him, which is not the role that we wanted to play. But the poor coach really was making an effort to try to give him feedback and to try to also help him understand where he stood on the depth chart, which was the lowest person on the team. And I think it was just one of those moments to where we kind of had to punch him square between the eyes. And I remember it very vividly because we worried about kind of breaking his spirit, right? And him feeling too defeated and not wanting to play a sport ever again. And AJ did one thing that was very, very interesting. It took him a little bit of time. It didn't happen overnight, but he started to gain a level of awareness, right? He started to read the court or the field a little bit better. He started to listen, right? He started to put more time in and effort into crafting different skill sets. And we could gradually see this amazing transition happen in him in terms of, listening and growing. Every time he went out to play whatever sport, because he was playing multiple sports at that point in time. But it was a beautiful shift, but a really hard moment as the coaches in that particular instance.
Sure, but one of the last things that AJ said in recounting the story is fuel, and AJ, clearly that stuck with you, my friend, right? Because that has driven you, maybe one of several data points in your memory that has driven you to be, the best LSM in Division I at Maryland. And it's those kinds of things. Can you use the feedback as fuel, right? Can you use it as true learning and put it into use? And so I love that characterization. And Amy, I appreciate your memory of that, because this is so consistent with what we see in the professional realm. We need to be honesty. Honesty is the ultimate form of loyalty. And if you care about someone, you'll be honest. If you want the mission to succeed, you'll give feedback that makes the mission better, right? And then to AJ's transformation, AJ became more self-aware. AJ became working on the things that matter most. And that is the ultimate in accountability. So love that story. Kendall, can you think of a time as you were going through your early stage, maybe middle school into high school, where you started to understand and appreciate the impact of being coachable or of getting good feedback?
Yeah, well, I'll echo AJ first and say thank you guys for having us on. After watching your podcast for months now, it's really exciting to be a guest and to get this opportunity to learn from you guys and have an awesome conversation. I think that I am going to kind of piggyback off of what you were just talking about with the fuel aspect. I think in my middle school to high school years, a story that comes to mind was a particular lacrosse tryout that did not go the way that I hoped it would. And looking back now, I can say that the effort that I put up that day did not deserve to have the result that I wanted. And I think that this example really stands out as a learning point that could have gone two ways, where this particular tryout I really wanted to make, but I didn't show up the way that I needed to in order to make the team. And obviously I was disappointed. I was confused since I thought that I deserved to make the team at the young age that I was at. I hadn't had many times where I didn't make a team at that point. So growing up, this was one of the first real experiences of failure that I had. And so I think that because of my dad's involvement with sports and growing up with him as a coach, I think that he probably was a huge part in me taking this example as a learning story and to be able to use it as fuel, where I learned that I can't just roll up to a tryout and have fun with my friends and run around as fast as I can. I have to really put the effort in and bring the non-negotiables to every single day, whether it's a tryout, whether it's a game, whether it's a practice or a day where I'm training on my own. And I think that this example I carried with me a lot through high school as just a reminder that this tryout stung, but I'm not going to let that happen again as a result of my effort. Maybe I can leave one day, a practice or a tryout, knowing that I gave my best effort and it wasn't the result that I wanted. But I think that this story showed me that I'll never let that happen, a disappointment happen because of something that was totally in my control. So I think that this particular tryout I used as fuel for my high school years and beyond.
Yep. Thank you, Kendall. And I'm definitely remembering that memory and how the idea of urgency and effort is non-negotiable, right? In everything that we do. And again, a direct correlation into the professional realm where we have this we want people to become confident. Amy speaks about this all the time, right? We're trying to inspire and instill confidence in other people. And so sometimes it takes some adversity to get the best out of people, right? And how do they respond? And so once again, like AJ, Kendall, you use that as fuel to be a high school national champion, multiple captain, and using that as leverage for fuel to drive you to be better. So we've been talking about two examples, very great examples of how we've been able to use some of that adversity or even that feedback as fuel. And so, Lauren, as you made this transition from high school into college, help us understand a little bit of how that transition helped to refine your idea of what it meant to be coachable or what it meant to get real feedback.
Yeah, so this transition was definitely one of the hardest of my life, but it was definitely one of the most important. And I think some things that AJ was talking about self-awareness was really relevant for me as well, especially on this larger scale going into college. And I'm sure Kendall and AJ can both agree, but I was kind of coming off of this high in high school where I was feeling super confident, super in my sport, just not even just success, just feeling good about how I was as a player, knowing who I was as a player. And I think that might have transparently led me to be a little bit complacent going into college. And so when I got to college, of course, being a freshman, being one of the youngest there, my confidence was definitely knocked down a little bit. And I think that taking feedback as a confident person versus a non-confident person is so different. And I think that for me personally, I was quick to be defensive and really internalize feedback when I'm not confident. And I think that adding destructive emotion is something that I've struggled with. So adding emotion to feedback from my coach when it really was just subjective and I could just take it and just start to make a change, I would take it and kind of use it and become super defensive about it. And so I think that really took some self-awareness for me to realize where I was internalizing and other people were growing and getting better because they were taking feedback at face value, but I was really adding this layer that I didn't need to add. And so I think realizing that helped me a lot, and that definitely is a key factor for coachability for me in college.
Yeah. No, thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. And Amy, how true is it, right? When in the professional realm, when you are actually managing or leading a confident professional versus someone who's grasping, right? It's all the difference in the world.
It's all the difference in the world in terms of the productivity that you want to get out of your teammate, right? Of your employee. And Chris, this comes back to, a podcast that we did a few months ago on next play mentality, right? Mm-hmm. How do you keep your team's confidence up, right? And be able to get them to get into this kind of fail forward mentality, right? Keep trying. Kendall, you talked about effort, right? So important that you're just putting your best effort out there each and every day, but it may not always result the way that you want it to. And so being able to reset yourself is one thing, but as a leader, being able to encourage your team and coach your team up through those moments, I think is equally important. But by not making an effort, by not taking that shot, by not learning from each mistake that you make, you're almost kind of stunting your own growth. And that is so transferable into business with the way that I think an employee who has a lot of potential and they're trying their very, very best every single day, but they just might not be making the strides that they want to. That little bit of encouragement, that constructive yet positive feedback on keep it up, keep going, makes all the difference in the world to get the maximum performance out of your team.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Amy. And Lauren, again, like Kendall and like AJ, you are able to, using your self-awareness, using your ability to see feedback differently and more objective and at face value, you were able to take all that success from high school and now reestablish that at the next level in Division I. So look, guys, it's just incredible how much of a leg up you have in the professional realm by virtue of the team dynamic, the human dynamic that you have as a Division I athlete. It's absolutely remarkable because at the end of the day, what are professional organizations? They're systems. They're systems, right? And systems need to have good feedback loops in order for them to operate efficiently. And so feedback and coaching and learning is all part of that system that helps to keep things efficient and high performing, right? So we've talked about some of your formative years. We've talked about using it as fuel, but there's another part of this. As you all have continued to grow as athletes and as leaders and as future professionals, you've also had to be able to figure out how to not only receive feedback and coaching, but give it, right? And so, AJ, I know in your world and on your team, there now are opportunities where you have to step in and on the field, be a coach on the field, right? Be a supporter and encourager. Sometimes some tough love on the field.
Yeah, definitely is some tough love. I think that I really took that step up from like my sophomore year to my junior year after getting a good amount of experience in the season. I think you can't really say much as a sophomore. I feel like you can help like younger kids out, but I feel like you can cross a boundary where those kids might kind of look at you as like, who are you to talk to me? Like you haven't done anything. And it really took some learning and looking out from like great leaders who I've been able to like play for and with, who have graduated before me. And, it is that tough love. But I think one of the coolest things that I've been able to kind of learn over the past 2 years is really being able to get to know people off the field first, to be able to see how they can take criticism. It's a balance between getting to know your teammates and how they take feedback, just as well as how I take feedback and how my teammates have had to get to understand that as well, but also being able to find kind of times to stay intense or pull a kid aside and talk to him about it. And
well, what you're describing, and Amy, I know you're feeling the same thing as you're hearing AJ share this particular point, which is it requires AJ to have that emotional intelligence, right? It's a different, he's got to be able to be aware situationally, emotionally, how to deal with different members of his team. That is such a direct reflection of what you all will see in the professional realm, which is you've got to know your audience. You've got to know what makes them tick. You got to go. But the first thing in the example, Amy, is he's got to go within first, right? He's got to check himself first before he works the team, right?
That's absolutely right. And, Chris, the best players, the best athletes are the most coachable. And so are the best leaders. 100%, and Chris, and I know that AJ knows my favorite book of all time is The $1 Trillion Coach, which is the story of Bill Campbell. And why I love that book so very much is because you have a coach of young men in a sport, and he was able to tap into the emotion and the coachability of some of the top CEOs and founders in the world, right? He took the skills of coaching young men on the field and brought it right to the boardroom. And they correlate so well. When you have a bad leader on a team that is not encouraging, providing good feedback, but also knows their team. Chris, you said it a second ago. What makes them tick, right? What makes them want to run through the wall, right? What makes them just unstoppable on an athletic field? As a coach, a head coach, or even, some of the upperclassmen on the team, and as a business leader, you have to understand what makes your teammate or your players tick. And that's really, really important, right? Building that layer of trust so they know they can turn to you, and that, you're going to get the most out of them day in and day out because they feel like you have their back.
Absolutely. Well said. And Kendall, how have you been able to develop a voice to be able to not only receive the coaching, but also being able to coach up and develop members of your team? How have you been able to find that voice, and give us a little bit of an insight into that world?
Yeah. Well, I think AJ hit the nail on the head with what immediately comes to mind, which is know your people. I think, Dad, I've heard you say that phrase a lot. I can't emphasize enough how important that is, especially on our team. I know in one way it is on a boys team, but I think on a girls team in a different way, it's really important to know your people. And something that I've learned throughout my college experience is that when you establish a strong relationship that's grounded in trust, then when you are on the field, you can say things to your teammates and they know that it's coming from a place of love and it's coming from a place where you really do want them to get better. And so I think that that's something that I learned as a young player looking up at the girls above me. I think another thing that is really important that I learned throughout my 4 years was that a lot of the way that people receive feedback from you is dependent on how you show up every day, even on days when maybe you're not you're not giving feedback or you don't think you have eyes on you. And I think that AJ made a good point of as you get older, you have more of a role to as a leader or to speak more or to direct more. But even starting from your early years, from your first days there, I think that how you show up every day goes a long way. And that becomes your brand, and that becomes also a habit for yourself. And so I think that I learned by watching the girls above me, these really successful players and leaders and girls that I looked up to. I saw how they showed up every day and how that influenced the way that I looked at them or the way that I listened to them or if I wanted to be more like them.
Lauren, so part of coachability is not just about giving and receiving feedback, right? Or being a learner, but we've heard from all three of you just in this conversation tonight. It's also about how you show up, your attitude, your energy, right? Your presence. And how have you seen that be a factor in how teams operate, especially as you progressed to the highest level now? That it's not just the feedback and the coachability, Lauren, but it's also how are you showing up with the energy and the attitude?
Yeah. Well, I think that for me, presence is everything. And you can tell when it's so obvious when someone's not present. You feel it when you're not present. You feel distracted. And especially as college athletes, we have a million things I feel like that we can be thinking about, and it's so easy to get caught up in that. And I've definitely been guilty of that. But understanding like intentionality and giving 100% to where you are in that moment has been huge for me. And I talked to someone very smart who told me about the illusion of balance, which is if you try to split all your time in all these different places, you're never going to do anything right. So being 100% of where you are at that time, that's all you can do. And people sense that and people feel that. And I think that once I was able to start really being intentional and saying, I'm here right now, I'm going to give it everything, all of my attention, all of my thoughts, because that's how I'm going to do the best at it. So I think intentionality is something that's visible, even though it feels like it's inside you, it's visible and you feel that. And just like when you're talking to someone, and even when I think about when I'm talking to underclassmen, you can feel when someone's distracted, you can feel when someone's not really into it. And I think that presence is a huge part of energy. It's a huge part of giving your full effort.
Yeah, no, spot on. I mean, Amy and I were in clients just this week where we were talking about that ability to be present, the ability to focus, to be relentless on what matters most. And that's especially true when you're trying to get results through others, right?
Right.
You need to be present. You need to be focused. Aim.
Okay, well, we're gonna bring it home here with a couple rapid fire questions here, but I think it would be great to share with the audience, if you had one piece of advice to younger athletes today on what it means to be coachable, what advice would you give them? And we'll start with Kendall.
My brain first goes to what my dad always says is to be a learner and not a knower. I'm not stealing that from him, but I'll go a little deeper into why. I think that this brings in a really important piece of matching confidence and humility when it comes to being coachable. I think that going back to what Lauren said, in order to receive feedback in a productive way, you need to be confident in who you are as a player and a person. But also you need to have humility to pair with that in order to know that you don't know everything. You're not the best player that you can be and that this person sees your potential to be. And so that's a really important part of being a learner and not a knower. And I think it also ties in a piece of joy. Wanting to learn and not wanting to know, I think brings in a really important part of what we all love about sports and what you all love about what you guys do professionally, is that there needs to be some element of joy and passion in what you're doing, and finding the joy in it has been really important to me. And I think I would encourage anyone watching, whether that's for sports or hopefully this applies to business too, just to be able to match confidence and humility and have fun and find the joy in doing that.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Kendall. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Who's next, Aim? AJ, let's go, buddy.
I kind of like piggyback off of Kendall there. I think I guess one word I would say is energy. And when I say that, I think the piggybacking part would be like from kind of what Kendall said about joy. I think really, if you want to be a great, like really coachable and like want to not only be pleasing to your other teammates, but your coaches as well, I think bring a great energy. And I know we said before, but presence is super important. Some really wise person once said to me, always and every day you should bring an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Love that, AJ. Thank you, buddy. And there's a whole stream of work and research that we do at Steer, Amy and I, and our Steer team on positive relational energy. It literally drives performance. So definitely picking up what you're putting down, brother. Lauren, what do you got, buddy?
I would say probably accountability and just taking ownership. You have the power and the choice to take ownership of your own development, and it's in like the small decisions that you make every day. And that doesn't have to sound like a horrible thing. It's really the best thing you can possibly do is realize that you have control over that, and the little decisions that turn into habits are what make you that person. And nothing is going to be a quick fix, but that's a part of the journey, and that's a part of falling in love with the journey of being great. So I think definitely realizing that you need to take accountability, and you can take ownership of your own development.
Man, Amy, that's some real wisdom drops by those three.
Again, I'm so happy to have the three of you here, and I know I speak for Chris and Christine and Casey as well to say, you are truly, alongside of Michael and Ava as well, our greatest gifts. And it's been such a joy. I also think you're our greatest coaches. There's no one better than your own children to give you real direct, harsh feedback when you need it, especially this chapter in our lives, right? So talk about humility. I think it's fantastic to grow alongside of you in different ways that stretch us as parents, that stretch us as leaders. And so we're grateful for the gift of each of you. So we're so happy to have you here, and we can't wait to watch all the great things that you do in the upcoming seasons, but in life as well. So with that, Chris, I'll turn it back over to you.
Right on. Well, thank you all. And what I am so grateful for is the fact that you've really provided us with tangible, relevant, actionable insight. This incredible world and this incredible dynamic between high-level athletics and the professional realm could not be more connected. So we're really grateful for your insights, team. And it's even more relevant than and just we're very grateful. So we hope everybody enjoys this episode. I think it's going to get a lot of eyeballs because people are going to want to hear what you all have to say. And so we're grateful for that. So thank you all so much for joining us on the Art and Science of Leadership podcast.